It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and filling in for our usual co-host, Phil Emery, is nobody. Phil's absent today, so just running solo with our guest today. So to our listeners, please send your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback@songtalk.ca, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to things we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. Before we get to our guest tonight, just a little tidbit. If you do visit songtalk.ca, you'll notice on the sidebar, we have a new webpage all dedicated to our songwriting challenge. And if you've been listening the last few months, you know that the songwriting challenge has been ongoing. We did 3 episodes where the 3 hosts at the time, Phil, Mike, and myself, all shared our answers to the songwriting challenge. And we had a number of episodes where we showcased our listeners' songs and talked about their process and provided a little bit of feedback on their songs, which is a great thing. And we really thank our listeners for participating in the challenge. And in case you don't know what the challenge was, the challenge this year was to write a song based on the title, Why Do You Cry? And we got some really interesting discussions, and it was amazing to hear, from all the different listeners, and even between the 3 of us hosts, how different the answers ended up being, which was really quite interesting, and certainly our listeners came up with some really, really creative songs out of this challenge. So we thank you for contributing, and we look forward to doing it again all next year. Tonight, we're happy to have PEI-based artist Alicia Toner. For those who aren't familiar with Canadian geography, PEI stands for Prince Edward Island, one of the Atlantic provinces in Canada. Alicia Toner's new song tonight is The Moment Before You Let Yourself Fall in Love Completely. It's the fear of opening yourself up to heartbreak versus the fear of losing what could be. It's the internal struggle of playing it safe or diving in head first. And here is a little taste of Alicia's song tonight.
Oh, don't give me that look. You know just what I'm thinking. The sun is going down. I'm drinking you in with my eyes. As the world stopped turning, no shields, no disguise. Give it to you here tonight. My mouth is not my own.
PEI-based artist Alicia Toner has had an explosive year since the release of her sophomore album, Joan. Alicia brought home a 2022 Canadian Folk Music Award, became the most nominated artist at the Music PEI Awards this year for the project, and received multiple nominations at the East Coast Music Awards. Her album spent 8 weeks on the Canadian campus radio charts and received a 2-page feature in PEI Living magazine. Described as an artist with powerhouse vocals in a way that you just can't capture on record by Roots Music Canada, the celebrated vocalist and songwriter worked with well-known Canadian producers Stuart Cameron, Crash Test Dummies, Matthew Good, and Amanda Marshall, and Peter Fusco to bring the deeply personal project to life. Alicia is celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Joan with the release of her brand new single Tonight. Welcome to Song Talk Radio, Alicia Toner.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show, Alicia. So for everyone to know, how can you describe your songwriting process in a nutshell? How does it usually work for you?
I can't describe it in a nutshell, but I can describe it. I can describe the many different ways that it kind of comes about. And
why don't we start with Tonight? How did this song come about?
So with Tonight, I had that kind of opening riff. I had that little, and I usually write songs on the guitar. I'm actually a violin player.
Oh.
I grew up playing classical violin, so I usually start and hear a melody, and that's usually where I start from. But with this particular one, I just was playing around with this riff off of the top. And then, I guess I wrote this back in 2019, probably. Mm-hmm. And after that riff, I was playing it kind of over and over again. And that the melody and the lyrics came at the same time. So that kind of fell into place. And I wrote a bridge originally that was like really, really wordy and trying to get like a whole lot of information out. And I took Tonight to a SoCan kind of song camp. Uh-huh. And was given some very, very like good advice that maybe just like scale it back, just scale it back a bit. And, so it just went like super simple. It just went super simple in the bridge, and it just said everything it needed to say. And
so can you just backtrack a little bit? So you had the guitar riff, and then did the guitar riff then sort of inspire some kind of an idea for the lyrical content, or was it something that you kind of put together? They were separate, or
it was. For this particular song, I just started singing some lines. And some singing words and singing phrases that felt good together.
Okay.
And it wasn't until afterwards that I kind of went back and figured out what the content was. Okay. Like I kind of already had a verse 1 of just kind of letting words and melodies kind of fall out with this chord progression that I had come to for the verse. I had the riff. Changed to like a different chord progression for the verse, and verse 1 kind of just like fell out. And so whenever that happens, whenever I have something that just kind of falls out, I go back and figure out what it means after.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. No, that's actually a really great approach, because it's like it's like you have your brainstorming moment, and then you go back and now you're starting to bring it some focus.
Exactly. So you go back and you figure that out, and from there, once I kind of figure out what it's about, then I can go on with more of a like firm grasp on the context of the song for choruses and fleshing out like a second verse and continuing the story, and bringing it into a different place for a verse 2. And so, with this one fell out. This one kind of tumbled out really fast. The whole entire song was written in probably 30 minutes before I took it to camp and and edited and kind of had another look at it. But this particular one, I didn't really go back and edit that much, because it did. Sometimes I really love it when stuff just falls out. Mm-hmm. And it feels like if I go back and nitpick too much, it doesn't feel authentic anymore.
I can appreciate that. But you said you had a really wordy bridge, but I mean, we're going to hear the full song in a little bit during the show. But there's no bridge in this song.
There is a bridge in this song.
Oh, I don't want to live without you in my life. That part. Oh, that's the bridge. Okay. Sorry. Okay, fine. Okay, but it was a lot. It was a lot more stuff in it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's a really great. That's a great tip right off the bat. I mean, because you actually do have, I wouldn't say a lot of words, but the verses are wordy enough. There's a story there. the choruses are not, it's not a simple chorus, right? There's a lot of melodic interest. There's a lot of lyric in the chorus, arguably as much as there is in the verse. So
yes, it just kind of needed a breath.
You need a breath. You need something for the listener to be like, okay, can I just like take a moment here and
exactly catch up?
yeah, most excellent. Okay. How do you think your classical violin training feeds into your songwriting?
I think probably the way I usually write is I hear a melody first. I often write a song if I'm going on a walk or driving or like in the shower, somewhere where I can't be distracted. Mm-hmm. I don't have an instrument. I'll write something, part of a verse or a chorus or something in my head, and just hear that melody and have lyrics to it, and then pick up the guitar afterwards and figure out the chord progression that goes with that melody.
Do you record these little snippets like on your phone or something? Like that?
Just kind of voice memo the little melodies that while I'm walking around.
Okay. And at some point, do you actually sit down with these little snippets that you record and think about them, or are you more of like, I don't have a bank of ideas. I see one song through to its completion and then start the next one? Like, where do you fall on that?
It's more I see one song through.
Okay.
Instead of like a bank. I do have kind of a voice memo graveyard of songs that never did get finished.
Right.
And maybe they will be someday. But but if I'm really, digging something, I'm probably going to sit down and finish that one. Right. But yeah, I do. I record these little melodies and then I go, and I think probably that the violin training has a lot to do with that, because I don't always sit down and mess around with chord progressions and stuff. I kind of hear things melodically first, mm-hmm. and then add after the fact. Yeah.
And even your guitar riff thing is a dun, 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 like it's a descending melody.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a riff. Melody. It's not maybe lyrical in the singing sense, but it's still a figure as such. So, but I guess the difference is like I can speak for myself. I wrote instrumental stuff on piano and synthesizer and stuff like that for many, many years. And I actually sat down to start writing songs. My melodies were often, because I'm not a strong singer, I was getting other people to sing, and my melodies were just completely ridiculous. Like the ranges were too extravagant and broad. There was no room for breath.
Right.
Like, I can play this on my keyboard. It's a nice little melody, right? But then I always had to like learn through trial and error, but to think about, is this melody actually singable?
Yes. I mean, it's probably a little different for me because I am writing for myself. Yeah. I do know my own vocal range, but I've been singing since before I played the violin.
Okay.
And grew up listening to, all of the pop heroes and divas, like the Whitney Houstons and the Mariah Careys and the Lauryn Hills and the, Alanis Morissette. And so that has a lot of influence on it too. And just like in how I write melodically and how I sing things.
You play violin on your songs? I was listening to your album earlier and I'm trying to think. There was no like solo violin type.
No, not on this album. There isn't.
Okay.
There is some violin on it. It's buried a little bit more. There's some in in Call My Name and I think a couple others. But
you never took the violin on stage. I guess you have a guitar on stage, so I can
do have a violin on stage as well.
Okay. So if someone else is playing guitar, you can grab the violin and do.
Yeah. I usually do always have another guitar player with me. Okay. Because I do bring the violin.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, because I often think about like for example, I was thinking about I forget the guy's name, Zach Wilde, I think, Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist, and how he has a tendency to like run over the vocals a lot. Like he's wanking the whole time, right? It's just
Yeah.
doing these extravagant melodies and craziness and things like that. And I think, and I think, yeah, if you're coming from a singing background, then maybe your violin playing is a little more melodic instead of like, wacky runs and crazy acrobatics and things like that. Is that?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. And I guess it depends. I mean, I am more of a classical player than I am a fiddle player. On my first album, I did get into, there was some folky fiddle stuff on there. But I kind of moved away from that because it's not what I love to do the most. I do love, I am a classical player. And so when I get to the next album, it's going to be even more of that. There's going to be a lot more instrumental.
Okay.
On the next one. Yeah.
Right. Because you can sort of broaden that reach a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the lyrical content of tonight? How did you you said it came out pretty easily. Half an hour, you said you wrote this? Except for the bridge.
The bridge, yes.
So let's talk about the bridge then. What was the bridge before?
Oh my gosh, it's been years since I have thought about it, really. I'd have to go back and listen to like a voice memo from 2019, but
I'd be horrified.
It would be horrifying. Yes. Yeah. It's funny to listen to those things. No, the only thing I remember about it was that it was just as wordy as the rest of the song. And it was kind of, couldn't catch your breath kind of thing the whole time. But
so are you cognizant of that in your songs about like really strong lines of contrast between verse and chorus and bridge, and you want to make the sections to be distinct? Yeah. Right, because like I said, like I've been listening to your album and it's really strong. Like the songs are just, the bones are really, really good. Like it's clear where the choruses fall. It's clear where the bridges fall. And everything's catchy and interesting, and it's a really great. It's a really great album. But that's something. Even like we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago on our songwriting challenge, where one of our listeners submitted a story song, and I made the comment that verse 2 didn't really seem to go anywhere. Like it was kind of the same thing as verse 1. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of approach where you're always cognizant of like verse 2? How do you distinguish verse 2? Because that's always a big struggle for especially beginner songwriters, and myself included.
Verse 2 is struggle.
Yeah, like where do you go with verse 2 if you kind of said it all in verse 1?
You've said it all in verse 1. I think I often like to think of verse 1 and verse 2 as two different moments in time. So if verse 1 is in the present, then maybe verse 2 is in the past.
Okay.
Different tenses. Different, or if verse 1 is in the present, verse 2 is what could be in the future, or it depends on the song. But the story song, it's not always that easy. But I do find if I'm really stuck, that's a good place for me to go. Is how do if this is me talking about what's happening now and how I'm feeling right now, then maybe what got me feeling that way in the past. That's a good start for a verse 2. And I don't know, depending on how long the song is, if there is a verse 3, how do you wrap that up? What's going on now? What's about to happen? What's, the kind of jumping around in time to make it, because you can't, if you say it all in verse 1, what are you supposed to do?
Then you split verse 1 in half and do the second half of it in verse 2.
Yeah, exactly.
If you said it all in verse 1, you probably said too much.
Yeah, exactly. You probably said too much. Narrow it down just a little bit. That's another thing is kind of, you don't have to give everything away in verse 1. It can be very simple. It can be very narrow. It can be very, instead of this chunk of time, it can be this chunk of, people are listening to this. They can't see my hands.
This will be on YouTube as well.
There you go. Instead of a broad, spectrum of time, it can be just a moment.
Right.
A verse can be a moment in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of where I start on the verse 2 struggle anyway.
yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, I've heard that before. Is it like different times or different, even different character points of view, if it's that kind of story song, or different, like, you know, there's the he and then there's the she point of view, or whatever it may be, like a different sort of thing. And then of course the bridge is another opportunity to bring yet another dimension to that, whether it's, yeah, like you say, future tense or something else.
That tension, whatever it is.
Yeah. I really like the way the chorus lifts off in this song. It certainly seems like you were, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but like the melodies in the verse have a lot more space in them.
Yeah.
Right. And then in the chorus, it's the melodies tend to almost overlap with each other. They flow a lot more. There's a lot more perfect rhymes in the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that the melody's higher. There's all sorts of things you talk about that a chorus, quote unquote, should be if you want the chorus to lift. These are exactly the sorts of things you want to do. And then have you ever studied with Pat Pattison, Berklee School of Music? He's got a course on Coursera.org. It's perfectly free.
Oh, great.
You know, he talks about this thing, spotlighting. Like, how do you spotlight the title in the song, given the title's only one word, right? Yeah. You know, if there ever was a day to give my heart away, I would give it to you here tonight. You know, rhyme, not rhyme. That's one way of spotlighting it, right? That's one way to spotlight, and of course, it's the end of the chorus, so that's another way of spotlighting it. So you really bring the attention.
Every Nashville country formula of like putting the title at the end of the chorus.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Which I'm sure you don't always do.
No, I definitely don't always do it. It just, that one kind of happened naturally, but
it sort of fit with the lyric. If it fits with the language, right?
It did fit with the language, yes.
So was the title an early thing, or was it the title after you wrote the song?
Title was after I wrote the song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't on purpose, actually. Highlighting that word wasn't on purpose. But it just it was the most natural thing to call it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of a happy accident, that one.
No, it totally. Yeah, it's interesting. You always lead into the analysis of a song saying you must have done it like this, but not necessarily. It could just have happened that way. But yeah, happy accidents are great. I have many of them, and they're always.
I think too, like you and I were talking briefly before we started, kind of about feelings, and about, you know, songwriting does have a lot to do with feelings. It's not just technical, but
absolutely.
You know, the wordiness of this song was kind of on purpose. It ended up being way too much when the bridge was also really, really wordy. But that feeling of standing on the edge of that cliff and not knowing whether you're going to jump or not is really it just kind of feels like a train that could go off the tracks at any moment. And it was also, when I wrote this, it's a love song, but it was also a bit of a tumultuous time in my life. So that kind of never catching your breath and kind of just barreling through to the end is just kind of what came out at that moment in time. And I think that has so much more to do with it for me than thinking about things really technically. Some of it's super technical. There are some choices within it that are made very purposefully, but a lot of it is kind of left untouched because that's the feeling that happened in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is like an amazing kind of focus emotionally to this whole thing. Like, it really zeroes in and it sort of puts me as the listener into the mind, into the feeling of the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
What does that moment really feel like? And especially like the second verse, "My mouth is not my own." Like that's a great line, and it really conveys that as like the mouth is not my own. Like I'm kind of having this sort of out of body experience, right? It's almost like it's happening to me, and I can't help it.
Yeah.
So it's really strong that way, and I do like it that it is. In a lot of senses, it is kind of a small, intimate love song, like you say. Like it's not talking about, big grand emotions or big things. It's really zeroing in on that kind of intense, burning moment.
Yeah.
where you need to make this decision, and you just follow through with it, without like you say, without thinking about it too much. It just kind of happens, right?
And going back to that, like verse 1, verse 2 thing, and this song specifically, like verse 1 is kind of describing the present moment, what's happening. And then verse 2 is, okay, how do I feel about it? Like what's going on for me inside in this present moment.
Yeah.
So that was a distinct kind of like, verse 1 happened really quickly. Here's the scene. And verse 2 was more thoughtful, like what's going on for me as I'm looking at all of this.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great way to do it, and to really pull the listener through your story and get invested into the feeling of it. Okay, let's take a listen to the whole song, and then we'll chat about it a little bit more.
All right.
What I'm thinking, the sun is going down. I'm drinking you in with my eyes, as the world stops turning. No shields, no disguise. Give it to you here tonight. My mouth is not my own. Can't seem to stop it from speaking. Every feeling I have known, every promise word keeping. I don't know what to do if I'm going to. There's a part of me that may never decide. If there ever was a day to give my heart away, I would give it to you here. I don't want to live without you in my life. I don't want to let another day go by. I know what to do. I know I'm going to. That part of me has made up its mind. I know just what to do. I know I'm going to. That part of me has made up its mind. This will forever be the day I gave my heart away. I give it to you here tonight. I give it to you here tonight. I
Beautiful, beautiful song.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. So there's a couple other things I noticed upon repeated listening to this. I mean, like you're talking about the different time tenses in first and second verse. You even did it in first, second, third chorus, right? Because by the end of the song, the chorus, the melodies are the same, but now I know I'm going to, as opposed to I might do. This part of me has made up its mind. I gave it to you tonight, as opposed to I might give it to you, sort of thing, or I would give it to you. So yeah, it's a really good progression that way. One thing I wanted to ask you about your verse one melodies, especially, maybe not so much in verse two, but you put a lot of melody into like one syllable words. Right? Like I like is that, I don't know, like is that a conscious thing? Because that's the other thing that sets apart the chorus. The chorus is one syllable, one note.
Yeah.
Right. Your verse, not like that at all.
No, it's not. No, I ran a couple lines into the next line. Like
yeah, which is really clever too.
Like
really
crossed over a word into line. Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, it was. I don't know if the like, vocal acrobatics was super conscious in the moment, but definitely the carryover was a conscious choice.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was kind of. It was kind of. I find it a little bit like. I don't know what the right word is for that. Almost like unsettling.
Okay. Unsettling how?
Unsettling in the sense of like, it's not like, here's a line.
Yes.
Here's a line. Here's this line. Oh my God, it's not ending. What's going on? Oh, she's going into the next verse.
Yeah. You're introducing a lot of tension.
Yeah.
Into it, and a lot of, and you're breaking expectation. And you're kind of, it definitely does that, because I'll admit the first time I heard this, I was like, where is this melody going? It's a little bit meandering, and then the chorus hits. It's like, okay, now we're grounded.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So there is quite a bit of that. And I think the second verse gets a little bit more grounded as well, melodically. And your second verse is half the length of your first verse.
Yeah.
Was that a afterthought, or was that always that way?
No, that was pretty conscious. I do that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but I do often kind of cut the second verse a bit shorter and get to the hook again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because the hook, the chorus doesn't come in, at least, I don't know, I'm going to say 45 seconds or so. Yeah. Into the song, like the first verse is a little bit on the long side. Like it goes on, it's pulling you along, but in these days of streaming, and Spotify doesn't count a play if it's skipped in the first 30 seconds. Everyone's trying to load their hooks,
I know,
as top heavy as they possibly can.
It's true,
but okay, it's not a pop song. What's that?
But I should care more about that. But
well, I'm not saying you should. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm an old school guy, so I prefer songs that build, and like I'll stick with it for the whole duration of a song. I'm not going to skip within the first 30 seconds unless I really hate it. But if you don't have something super exciting going on in the first verse, that's okay. I know it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's fine. And again, like, it depends on who your audience is, I think. I mean, if you judge everything by what's on the top 10 on Spotify, then you're probably not in a good place.
And most of the artists that I listen to are a huge fan of, a lot of their choruses don't come in until, after 45 seconds.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot of there's just a bit more exposition, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you've got a story to tell, you need time to tell your story, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can get it out in 20 seconds and get to the hook, and but this wasn't one of those for me.
You ever write a chorus that's kind of you ever write a reverse chorus where the energy is down in the chorus?
The energy is down in the chorus. I'm sure
a soft chorus.
Yeah. Call My Name is a lot like that.
Okay.
I would say it's very soft until it's very loud.
Oh, that's the one that really, it's quiet, and then
yeah.
That's a great track.
Yeah.
Very cool. Which is a good. I mean, I often talk about that too. Is that like think about the structure of your song and what does it mean narratively?
Yes.
What does the narrative mean in terms of the energy map of the song? Like, do you want it to be big and boisterous here? Do you want it to be soft and introspective? Do you want it to be, and does the music follow that? Yeah.
I also do. I like to write story songs that don't have a chorus.
Yeah.
That are just kind of like an A-B all the way through. Those are some of my favorite songs that I've written.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite songs to listen to from other artists that are just,
Which tends to follow, right? That if you're listening to that stuff, you get inspired by it, and you want to do it like your favorite artist did. Like, why not?
That's right.
It's not plagiarism. It's inspiration.
Inspiration. Oh my gosh, everything's already written, so
pretty.
We're all plagiarizing somebody at this point.
Nothing new under the sun. But that's okay. Well, that's one thing I realized as I've gotten older is that like any new artist that I like them because they're harking back to what I fell in love with when I was younger. Yes,
and have you noticed a massive '90s revival as of late?
90s, 80s, 70s, everything.
Everything. Yeah. The 90s, I feel, is a new thing that's happening. Maybe I'm just late to the algorithm feeding me those things, but yeah, huge 90s revival happening.
I think it depends on what. Like the 90s, I was listening to a lot of grunge and a lot of really darker music. In the 80s, I was all... It
depends on your 90s, I guess.
I'm a child of the 80s, so it was all pop in the 80s, and all that's coming back now, like full on. Yes, that's true. There is a huge 80s revival, too. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's fantastic. Okay, I think we're going to wrap that up. That's about all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to Alicia Toner. It's been great having you on the show. Where can our listeners hear more of your great music?
You can hear me on Spotify. You can hear me, it's just Alicia Toner on Spotify. You can hear me on SoundCloud, also Alicia Toner. You can head to my Bandcamp page. You can find me, all over social media. It's usually Alicia Toner Music.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, we'll certainly link to that stuff on our show post on songtalk.ca. And as far as our listeners, we want to hear from you too. So please send us your comments on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Songtalk Radio, or send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes. Subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider, and don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter at songtalk.ca. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page on the website. And wherever you are in the world, please join us online via Zoom at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link, bring a song and a lyric sheet, and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. And Alicia, what's your favorite social media channel of all of them?
Instagram.
You're an Instagrammer, of course. Thanks for listening.
I am a millennial and I am an Instagrammer.
Yeah. And that would be Alicia Toner Music on Instagram, right?
That's right, yeah.
Perfect, okay. Thanks for listening, everyone, and be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and keep on writing.